Once upon a time, in the heart of Ethiopia, where the mountains kissed the sky and the rivers sang ancient songs, there was a village called Washa. Washa was a place of vibrant colors, bustling markets, and laughter that echoed through the valleys. But high above the village, on the misty peaks of the Simien Mountains, stood a grove of palm trees unlike any other. Their leaves shimmered with a golden hue, glowing faintly even in the darkest nights. The villagers called them the yellow palms, and they were the source of countless legends, whispered tales, and unanswered questions. No one knew how the yellow palms came to be. Some said they were a gift from the sun god, while others believed they were cursed by a jealous spirit. Children dared each other to climb the mountain and touch the trees, but none ever succeeded. The elders warned that the palms were guarded by forces beyond human understanding. Yet, the mystery of the yellow palms was about to unravel, and it would begin with a young girl named Salam. Salam was known in Washa for her boundless curiosity and her knack for getting into trouble. At 12 years old, she had already climbed the tallest baobab tree, outsmarted the village goat thief, and once even convinced the local priest that she had seen a talking hyena. Her best friend, a mischievous boy named Tedros, was always by her side, egging her on with his infectious grin. Together, they were an unstoppable duo, and the yellow palms were their next adventure. One crisp morning, as the sun painted the mountains in shades of amber, Salam and Tedros stood at the edge of the village, staring up at the distant peaks. "Do you think the stories are true?" Tedros asked, his voice tinged with both excitement and fear. Salam adjusted the small satchel on her shoulder, which held a handful of roasted barley and a flask of water. "Only one way to find out," she said, her eyes gleaming with determination. And with that, they began their journey. The path to the mountains was steep and treacherous, winding through dense forests and rocky outcrops. As they climbed, the air grew cooler, and the sounds of the village faded into silence. Along the way, they encountered an old hermit named Abib, who lived in a cave halfway up the mountain. Abib was a wiry man with a long, white beard and eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of centuries. "Ah, the seekers of the yellow palms," he said, his voice raspy but warm. "Many have tried, but few have returned. Are you sure you're ready for what lies ahead?" Salam and Tedros exchanged nervous glances but nodded firmly. Abib chuckled and handed them a small, intricately carved wooden flute. "This will guide you when the path is unclear," he said. "But remember, the yellow palms are not just trees. They are a test of the heart." With those cryptic words, he disappeared into the shadows of his cave, leaving the children more puzzled than ever. As they continued their ascent, the landscape began to change. The trees grew sparser, and the ground was covered in a fine, golden dust that sparkled in the sunlight. Suddenly, the air around them seemed to hum with energy, and the faint sound of music reached their ears. It was coming from the flute in Salam's hand, which was now glowing softly. "Do you hear that?" Tedros whispered, his eyes wide with wonder. Salam nodded, and they followed the melody, which led them to a hidden valley. The valley was unlike anything they had ever seen. In its center stood the yellow palms, their golden leaves swaying gently in the breeze. Surrounding the trees was a circle of stones, each engraved with strange symbols that seemed to pulse with light. As Salam and Tedros approached, a figure emerged from behind one of the trees. It was a woman, tall and regal, with skin the color of polished mahogany and hair that cascaded down her back like a waterfall of midnight. She wore a robe made of woven gold threads, and her eyes sparkled with a mix of amusement and curiosity. "Welcome, young ones," she said, her voice melodic and soothing. "I am Makeda, guardian of the yellow palms. You have come seeking answers, but are you prepared for the truth?" Salam stepped forward, her heart pounding. "We are," she said, trying to sound braver than she felt. Makeda smiled and gestured to the stones. "Each of these represents a challenge. To understand the yellow palms, you must face them. But beware, for they will test not only your courage but also your character." The first stone began to glow, and the ground beneath their feet trembled. Suddenly, they were no longer in the valley but in the middle of a dense jungle. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and the cries of unseen creatures. A voice echoed in their minds. "Find the way, but beware the shadows." Salam and Tedros looked at each other, their earlier bravado replaced by a sense of unease. They began to move through the jungle, the flute's music guiding them. But as they walked, they noticed that their shadows were moving independently, twisting and contorting into grotesque shapes. The shadows began to taunt them, whispering their deepest fears and insecurities. Tedros froze, his face pale. "I can't do this," he muttered. Salam grabbed his hand, her grip firm. "Yes, you can," she said. "We're in this together." With her encouragement, they pressed on, and the shadows gradually faded away. The second stone transported them to a vast desert, where the sun blazed mercilessly overhead. A towering sand dune stretched before them, and at its peak was a shimmering oasis. The voice returned. "Quench your thirst, but do not lose yourself." They began to climb, the sand shifting beneath their feet. As they neared the top, they saw that the oasis was surrounded by mirrors, each reflecting their images back at them. But the reflections were distorted, showing them as older, wealthier, and more powerful. Tedros reached out to touch one, mesmerized by the image of himself as a king. "Wait," Salam cried, pulling him back. "It's a trick. Remember what Makeda said." Reluctantly, Tedros turned away, and the oasis vanished, revealing a small, humble pool of water. They drank deeply, the cool liquid reviving their spirits. The third challenge took them to a bustling marketplace, filled with the sights, sounds, and smells of a vibrant African city. The voice instructed, "Find the truth among the lies." They wandered through the stalls, each vendor offering them treasures and trinkets. One man tried to sell them a map to the yellow palms, while another offered a potion that promised eternal youth. Salam and Tedros were tempted but remembered Makeda's warning. Finally, they came across an old woman selling simple wooden carvings. Her eyes were kind, and she spoke no words, but her presence felt genuine. Salam traded the flute for one of the carvings, and the marketplace dissolved around them. Back in the valley, Makeda nodded approvingly. "You have passed the first 3 challenges," she said, "but the final test is the most difficult." The fourth stone glowed brighter than the others, and they were plunged into darkness. The voice whispered, "Face your greatest fear." For Salam, it was the fear of failure, of letting down those she loved. For Tedros, it was the fear of being alone. They stood back to back, their breaths shallow and rapid. Slowly, the darkness began to recede, replaced by a soft, golden light. The yellow palms stood before them, their leaves rustling as if in applause. Makeda appeared once more, her expression filled with pride. "You have proven yourselves worthy," she said. "The yellow palms are not just trees. They are a symbol of resilience, wisdom, and unity. They exist to remind us that even in the darkest times, there is always light." She handed Salam a single golden leaf, which glowed with an inner fire. "Take this as a token of your journey. Share its light with your village, and let it guide you in times of need." As they descended the mountain, Salam and Tedros felt a profound sense of accomplishment. When they returned to Washa, the villagers gathered around, eager to hear their tale. Salam held up the golden leaf, and its light spread throughout the village, filling everyone with warmth and hope. From that day on, the yellow palms became a symbol of unity and strength, and Salam and Tedros were celebrated as heroes. But the story doesn't end there. High in the mountains, Makeda watched over the yellow palms, knowing that their mystery would continue to inspire generations to come. And somewhere, in the heart of Ethiopia, a new adventure was already beginning, waiting for the next curious soul to uncover its secrets.